I'm very excited about this book, Dachshund Through the Snow, which I happen to have right here. I'm so proud of it. I've always loved dogs since I was a little girl. In fact, if I'd been better at science, I might have been a veterinarian. I come from a long line of veterinarians, but especially the breed Dachshund. Some people pronounce it Dachshund, which makes more sense with the title, Dachshund Through the Snow. But we've always pronounced it Dachshund. I've got one outside the door scratching right now. You can probably hear her, named Molly May. But I've always had Dachshund since I was born. I grew up with a Dachshund, and I've never been without a Dachshund my whole life. The breed is just a special breed. And so I always knew I wanted to write a book about a Dachshund. I can't believe it took me till I was well into my 108th or 9th book to do this, but it was just the right time for it. And this is a sweet little Christmas story. And it's not just a typical Christmas story, but Crosby, he's the hero of this story, a little cute Dachshund. He ends up saving Christmas, and not only does he save Christmas and find Santa because he couldn't find Santa, but he really finds himself in all of this and realizes that his weakness, which was he's very, very tiny. He's the tiniest Dachshund in all of Diggityville. But the fact that he's really small, he considers a weakness, and he's even bullied about it, becomes the reason that he can really make such a difference. So even things that we might not feel good about ourselves, and I think all kids struggle with that no matter their age. My goodness, I struggle with that, and I'm not a kid anymore, just a kid at heart. I think that we learn through this book that no matter what your limitations are, there's nothing too big for you. You can get things done. You have to believe in yourself. And there's a line in here that says that it's not your stature that matters, but only the measure of your heart. And so I think that maybe kids can relate to that, because I know sometimes children can be cruel to each other, and there's all different kinds of ways to bully, right? You can cyber bully now, and there's just so many other ways to be not nice to one another. And while we hope that we're all getting better, I read stories every day about kids struggling with bullying. October is National Bullying Prevention Month, and I've been reading a lot online about it just because there is that theme in this book, just a small part. It's still a wonderful, fun Christmas story and great to read with a family. I hope that it becomes a family favorite, but I'm glad that that is in there because I think that element will speak to those who need to hear it. The first grade, believe it or not, I was in Mrs. True's class, Mrs. Peggy True. She was my first grade teacher at Parkview Elementary, and she had a poetry contest. We've been studying poems, different rhyming poems and different kinds of poems in first grade. And anytime there's a contest, I'm all about winning. I don't even care what it is. I just want to win. It's just fun to get free stuff, right? And the prize was like a sparkly pencil, and to get to go first in the lunch line, and it was on pizza day, which is like, uber exciting. So everybody had to participate. It wasn't like an optional thing. And I wrote a poem about I just thought about this. It was a Dachshund, my Dachshund named Penny. It was, oh my goodness. I mean, it certainly wasn't going to win a Pulitzer or anything, but it was well written enough to win the first grade poetry contest. I still remember part of it is that Penny is my very best friend. I'll love her to the very end. I mean, it was just, really fun stuff, and it won. And as I got my sparkly pencil and I went through the lunch line first on pizza day, and she put it up on the bulletin board, and I thought, when can I write my next poem? Like, I was excited about writing, and I realized I was really good at something, that it was being recognized. And so that kind of, I think, sparked what God had already put in me to write. And then in sixth grade, I became the editor of our school newspaper, the Paw Express, and that just kind of continued. And I realized I like to write. Like, this is something I'm really good at, and I enjoy it. And I was always told that as I got into high school, I met with my guidance counselor, and they had those big serious talks with you. And I had decided I was going to be a writer at that point. I mean, I just knew that was it. I was going to be a writer. I'd been writing for the high school newspaper and for all kinds of magazines and things within the school. And any opportunity I had to write, I would do so, and always made the best grades in my writing classes. But I met with my guidance counselor, and I remember her saying to me, do you have a backup plan? Because like only 2% of people who set out to be writers ever actually make it as a full-time writer. So you better have something else that you can do. Is there anything else that you want to do? And I really didn't have anything else I want to do. I thought, okay, well then I don't know what I'm going to do with my parents the rest of my life. I don't know what I'm going to do. And I was teaching for my sixth grade teacher, but then I went back as a cadet teacher for Mr. Ralston, Greg Ralston. We're still friends. He and his wife are such nice people. But he was my favorite teacher and all going through school. And then so when I got to be a cadet teacher, which every senior wanted to be a cadet teacher at our school, which meant you got to be out of like 3 hours of actual classwork. You had to go and, teach or grade papers or just be out in the public at one of the elementary schools for 3 whole hours. Well, I loved that. I was like, I'll sign up for that. I didn't really think I wanted to be a teacher, but I just liked Mr. Ralston. It came open and I had all my credits in. I thought I'll just do this my senior year. Why not? So I did that. And at the end of that senior experience, Mr. Ralston met with me. He had to give me my grade and I made a good grade. But he said to me, he's like, your heart's not really in this, is it? And I thought, oh no, I hope I haven't failed him. And I said, did I not do a good job? Because I loved him. I didn't want to disappoint him. He said, no, you did a fine job and the kids love you. And I appreciate your, your hard work. But he said, I also can sense that this isn't your first choice. Like being a teacher isn't what you want to do. And he was right. And I said, well, I mean, I love to teach. I mean, I love the kids. And he said, what did you want to do? And I said, I want to be a writer. But I was told that, I told him what my guidance counselor told me. And he said, okay. And I could tell that he didn't like that. And he said, well, let me tell you something. He's like, making a safety net when you haven't even tried anything yet is not the plan. That is not how you do this. He said, I think you should go for your dreams. And then he shared with me that he had thought about being a pharmacist at one point, and went into teaching, which he felt like was his calling, but that he'd always wondered if he could have been a pharmacist. And I thought, I just don't want you to always wonder if you could have been a writer. And I took that to heart because I respected him so much. We shared a love for the Indiana Hoosiers because I'm a big IU fan and he was IU fan. And I just liked him. I thought he was just a great guy and I respected him enough. I thought, okay, I'm just sassy enough that I'm going to go for this. Even what the guidance counselor told me not to do, and I'm still going to go for it. And so I did. And so I majored in journalism at Indiana University. And that's what I graduated with. And it's funny because my minor was in speech communication. And I thought, well, this will be a good thing if I ever have to go to someplace to speak about my books. But I had no idea that teaching would be a part of all this. So, because I teach writers all over the country, have been for like over 20 years at conferences. So really, it was a marriage of both teaching and writing. I get to do both. I've taught at Taylor University and I did something at University of Wisconsin and Ball State at Muncie campus. I've taught different things. And I just think it's interesting how even my senior year in high school, I didn't know what I was doing. God kind of already knew. So I get to write and teach, but it really all began in first grade. That's when that seed, I think, started to sprout. And I thought, okay, sparkly pencils on the line, I'm going for it. So I'm often asked, what's your favorite book or how many books have you written? And I actually had to sit down and count the other day because it was for this print interview and I didn't want to just say, oh, over 100. I wanted to get it right. After next year, we'll have 114 books at the end of 2022. So I got several books coming out. But yeah, I began my career not writing for children. I began my career in the newspaper industry, writing as a sports writer, actually. I worked for a small town newspaper, the Bedford Times Mail, but it was owned by Schurz Corporation. So I was a journalist. That's what I was trained to do. So my first book, they always say, write what you know, right? That's what that was with it. It was the thing they told us in journalism school. And I knew at that point, children and diapers and spit up. And that was, I was going to work every day. I was a sports writer and I was loving my career, but I had two little girls at home and they were 20 months apart. Literally the day I could zip up my jeans comfortably, I was pregnant again. I mean, I had them back to back. People often thought they were twins, but they weren't. I carried them separately. And so I just knew kids, that's what I did. When I wasn't working, I was with my children and I loved it. So I would go to Bible study on Tuesdays. My sister led Bible study. She's a pastor's wife and she led Bible study, was a great teacher. And I was kind of her scripture looker upper. That's what I did. But when she was gone, I would have to teach in her place, which was really scary for me. But I would teach, the examples I would use for that lesson would be from my life, which was always about the children, because that's all I knew. We watched Barney, remember the big purple dinosaur? A lot of Barney and that. And but after I would use these examples, kind of like I was parenting my children, but God was parenting me, I was able to then sort of communicate that to everybody, different walks of life in the Bible study. And people would say to me, Aka, why don't you write these things down? These are great. That really resonated with me, what you said. And I would think, really? That's just, that's kind of a silly example. And I thought, no, I really like that. So I took that to heart. And after about the 6th or 7th time, I thought maybe God's trying to tell me something. So I started writing down all these little stories about God parenting me as I parented my children. And that became my first book for adults called Little Lessons from a Big God. And that was published with Lionshead Publishing. And at the same time, I did a book called Living the Love Chapter, which took 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And there was a feature story, actually people I'd interviewed when I was working at the newspaper, these really great stories of love and loss and patience. And so I went through like Love is Patient. I remember that story I covered it for the newspaper about a girl that had always been looking for her dad, her birth dad. And she finally found him after like 40 some years. They reunited and got to share a few years together before he went to heaven. And I captured that in this feature story that had first run the newspaper, but then I was able to expand it for the book. So those two books came out really simultaneously with a Lion's Head Press, which I don't think is in existence any longer. But I started writing for adults. Those were, one was for women and one was for a Christian living book, for general Christian living book. And I still wanted to do children's stuff, but I didn't really know I was going to do that. Like I liked writing and rhyme, but I didn't know you could make a living at that. That just was something I did for my own children. But then it's just sort of exploded when we moved to Texas and I started writing for this Christian magazine. And the guy that usually wrote the children's section, there was one page in the magazine that was children's, he got promoted to this like IT position. He was real techie. And I was the only other writer on staff that had children at the time that wasn't assigned to something else. So my boss said, "You've got kids, right?" And I had those two little girls, right? They were like 4 and 2 at the time. And I said, "Yes, I have 2 little girls." And he said, "Great, you can take over the children's page." I was like, "Now, wait a minute. I'm a journalist. Like, just because I have kids doesn't mean I know how to write for them." But I'm a journalist, and so journalist research, that's what we do. So I found out about the Society of Children's Book Writers and Illustrators, and they had a really active chapter in Dallas, and that's where I was based, in Fort Dallas. So I started going to their meetings, and the guy that had been the children's writer, I was really good friends with his wife. And so we all would double date my husband, and we go out with Chris and Gina, and he began to really kind of help me hone my skills and taught me all that he knew. And that was the beginning of me really kind of diving headfirst into children's writing and falling in love with it. Just loved it. And so I was able to do both. I could write feature stories for this magazine, do some books for adults, and then I started writing for kids, little stories that eventually became books. Went to my first writers conference in '98 and sold my first children's book. So you don't hardly ever sell anything at your first conference. So I had to be a God thing. And I never forget meeting with the editor. I was so scared, but I sold my first book. So this can happen. It can happen. But I started writing early on, and I think you can look back and see how the twists and turns of your career were actually divinely orchestrated. You just didn't know it at the time. And I've loved every bit of it, even the bumps in the road. It's just been all to make me a better writer and a better person, actually. So I like writing for adults, but my heart's kind of with the kids. It depends on the topic, honestly. I immerse myself in the topic, but if it's a nonfiction book, man, I immerse myself in that topic. I am all about that topic. Like I did a doggy devotionals. It was called Puppy Dog Devotions with my friend Winnie Lanier, and it's nonfiction. It's for like ages 8 to 12. And so I have like 12 dog breed books checked out from the library, and I'm researching all the different dog breeds and what's different about this dog breed compared to another dog breed, and what can I pull from the scripture that would be a lesson for kids. So that's the process where I start with the research. When it's a more of a fiction kind of book like Little Crosby and Dachshund Through the Snow, I start brainstorming. I always seem to have like a germ of an idea. So I do it sort of old school. I just taught this at a conference in Florida, the Florida Christian Writers Conference. I just taught this in my children's class. I will have like a big bubble on my whiteboard, and I'll put, my idea that a dachshund saves Christmas. I don't know how he saves it or what's going on. That was the theme. And then I started doing these little offshoots. It kind of looks like a spider with all these little legs coming out. And I have things that could happen, and nothing, when you're brainstorming, nothing's off the table. Outrageous things can happen. And so you always just keep asking, what else could happen? What next? What else could happen? And you have to realize when you're writing fiction, it can't just all happen perfectly. You have to have some obstacles that the main character has to overcome, some things to learn some things about himself and become changed. If your main character doesn't change, even in a picture book, there has to be some change in that character so that we can cheer him on. And there always has to be, an antagonist, somebody that's like in this one, there's Bo, who's kind of a bully to him in line. When he's waiting in line for the Arctic Animal Olympics, this Bo is really mean to him and says mean things and then gets everybody to laugh at him. And so you always have to have sort of somebody to be mad at in the book. Kids have to have somebody to cheer for and somebody to be mad at. And then I think in children's books, you always have to leave your reader with hope. I think that's very important. I don't think that's mandatory, but in my books it's mandatory. I think you have to leave them with hope because they may not be getting hope anyplace else in their life because the world's not easy, especially now. So we want to give kids a way of escape. A nice read that's fun for them, just to escape into a world of fantasy, but also I think instill some faith and some hope in them and kind of send them off in the world a little bit more encouraged, maybe better than they were before they read the book. That seems like a tall order, but that's kind of my process. I always look to see if I've made a promise in the beginning of the book and make sure I fulfill that promise at the end. And I love it when you can bookend it. There's a way to bookend your book. You start with something, you end with something. Oh, that just sings. That's like where you get that moment, I love that. But there are different kinds of children's books. So I do like a little children's prayer book, like Cuddle Up Prayers that I did. That's a different process. I just come up, I start researching. I go to a lot of mommy blogs and find out what are some of the needs and things that they identify with their children. What are their kids upset about? Bullying was one of them, which was why I thought bullying should be in this book. Others are just fear of meeting new people. And so I started looking, well, what can I write these prayers for kids? What will really resonate with their hearts? What do they need? What do kids need right now? So I always, my process involves research if it's for nonfiction. And even if it's for fiction, I want to make sure that whatever I'm putting into the fiction is realistic if it needs to be, and that there's a reason for putting it in. So I guess mine starts with research and then brainstorming. And it's good to brainstorm by yourself, even better if you have a colleague or a critique group, somebody that can brainstorm with you, where you can bounce these outrageous ideas off of them. They're like, oh, maybe not, but how about this? And then that's how you really get better. So I always suggest having some kind of creativity party, or like really a party, a creativity party with some of your critique partners, or just maybe just a brainstorming session with somebody that you respect that writes the same genre that you write. That's my process. And it takes a different tone depending on what the book is, but pretty much always with brainstorming with somebody, and also the big idea bubble thing. That works for me. It's different for different writers though. Once the story is in place, as a picture book writer, you think visually when you write. If you don't think visually, then the book doesn't move. There's no movement. Everything would take place in one scene. That would be a bad picture book, unless it was intentional to be funny or something. But we want our words have to drive the story forward. But oftentimes, as picture book writers, what you learn as you get better at it is that the art says some of the things. You don't have to say everything, because the artwork will then be showing some of the things that you would have to show through words. So you need to leave enough space. It's like a pause to let the art do the telling. So you don't have to do that. You let the art do some of the work. So when you're writing, you have to really think visually. And this spread, this 2 pages, what will the artwork reflect that my words don't say? So I really think in terms of that. So what I started doing early on in my career is writing 2 different versions of my picture book, one with no art prompts and one with art prompts for each spread, meaning this is what I'm seeing in my mind happen. It's like a movie in my mind for this scene, for this spread. This is what I see happening. And those are I just call them art illustration or illustration suggestions. I never say like, this is what you better do, because artists often take that offensively. I'm trying to be the boss of them. Nobody wants to be boss, let's be honest. So I will just say it's suggestions. That's just to let them know, this is what I was thinking when I wrote it, but you may have a way better idea, because their giftings art, mine is not. My stick people aren't even good. But I do think visually. But then to see it come to life, and sometimes you have to have art notes. Like I knew in the last spread of this book, I knew that I wanted to have Crosby win a medal, right? I knew that, and I knew what I wanted it to say. I wanted there to be like a note from Santa, and I wanted the medal to say, short or tall doesn't matter at all. It's your ginormous heart that sets you apart. I wanted that to be on the medal. So in my art note, I said, there's no really words for me here. That's what I want the medal to say. You can make that work so it's real easy to read. And then I wanted there to be a note from Santa that would kind of be an encouraging, kind of a love note to Crosby. And it said, my dearest Crosby, thank you for saving Christmas. Please accept this gold medal as a token of my gratitude, and let it always remind you that the best things come in small packages. Love, Santa. Oh, I just love that. So I just put that in my art notes. This is what I see. But if you think there's a better way of doing it, maybe you do. But the artist just hit out of the ballpark. It's exactly what I envisioned, even better. And there are going to be some revisions. I know with the very first artist that we had to switch artists. Not that she wasn't talented, because I think she was, but her Dachshund just wasn't it. I mean, if the main character doesn't look like the main character or have that spunk and sassiness, then this book would have fallen flat. But this particular artist, I loved her, Anna Sebastian. She just captured Crosby's sassiness and his big heart. Like you see it, even with the way his puppy tail is up in the air, like in every scene. And when he's sad, you see it in his eyes. She just got him. It's like she was in my brain when I was writing it. That's when the pairing really comes together and the book sings. And not every book I've done has had that kind of magic, but this one does. And it's much I can thank Victoria Durstock, who's our publisher, who saw the vision with me and was able to find the right artist. If we settled for the first artist, I don't think this book would have been successful, but this is the right artist. It was the right pairing, and it's for this time. And I am so happy with it. I could not have been happier. I wouldn't have changed one thing. So I think that the art makes a big difference. And I was grateful I got to kind of choose the artist. Usually you don't get that kind of insight. I mean, there's many books of mine that just showed up. The author copy showed up, and that's the first time I saw it. Like, I didn't have any choice in the artist. I didn't even get to see the cover art. Nothing was shared with me till I got the copies on my front doorstep. And here are your author copies. And usually I was happy, but there was a couple of times I'm like, oh no, that would not be the look I had in mind. But you just, you have to trust. You have to trust that once you birth this book, that someone else can raise it. That's really what you're doing. You're asking somebody else to raise this baby that you birthed with the artwork. And I'm so thankful that this baby turned out the way I had hoped it would. But yeah, the art part is when you really see it come to life. The first time you see it, you'll gasp, and sometimes you cry, and it's just every time that never gets old. People ask, does it get old? It never gets old. I'm just as excited every time. But this one was really special. So yeah, I love it. I am born and raised in Southern Indiana. It's a small town. It's kind of that Kentucky-ana part of the state. Anything north of Indianapolis, is northern. Anything south is pretty much redneck. I'm in that part of the state, and I love it here. I live in a little town called Bedford, Indiana. I think there's a Bedford in like every state. And I grew up here. I married my high school sweetheart. Both of our families are from here. We went to Texas for about a 10-year stint, and then we came back and raised our kids here. And you either love it or you hate it here. It's funny when you're a kid growing up here, you can't wait to get out. And then oftentimes you can't wait to get back. It's just that kind of community. And I love it. I'm so thankful to be back here and to see. I have grandkids in my city now, just 5 minutes from here. It's just kind of a nice place to live and to raise children. Very much about community here. So I am a Hoosier at heart. Go IU. I'm a big IU fan, and even wrote a book about IU this year, a sports book with a friend of mine named Dell called The Heart of a Hoosier. So even when I lived in Texas, I love Texas. I do. I fit in there. It seemed like everybody got me there. It was nice. And Texas is my adopted state, but I'll always be a Hoosier at heart. That's a hard one. I think energetic people often used to describe me, and I was a cheerleader like my whole life. I'm very encouraging, maybe energetic and encouraging. And then I'm also just a goofball. I think maybe which might make me, I would say all of my best friends are like 3 feet and under. Kids like me because I'm just goofy. I dance and sing, and I'm not embarrassed to be just that person. I love that. I love writing for kids because I think I'm just kind of a big kid at heart. But those are probably good ones. I'm energetic. I'm super encouraging because I think that's my nature. And if I'm not being encouraging, you better pray for me. There's something wrong because I think that's part of my calling. And then I'm a goofball. I mean, my life should be like a sitcom because I'm so silly sometimes. Some of the things that I get into, like the things that happen to me, it would only happen to me. Like people always say that would only happen to you. I'm like, I know, but it's, it is what it is. So I'd say that's probably goofball, energetic, and encouraging maybe. I love fall. Oh, right. It's just beautiful because I live in Southern Indiana. So people come from all over, literally all over the world, to a little town called Nashville, Indiana. It's north of here for the beautiful change of the leaves. We have it here. My whole backyard is woods. We just moved in December of last year. And this is my first fall in this house. Oh my goodness. I just sit in our screening porch and just marvel at how beautiful. In Texas, we didn't get that. Like our fall in Texas was the leaves turned brown and fell off the tree. That was our fall. Here it's like the yellows and the golds and the oranges and the reds. And I mean, some are like deep, almost purple colored leaves. I mean, it's no fun to rake them, but oh, it's so beautiful. So I love fall, and I like hay rides and hot chocolate, and I like all the activities of fall, all the things of pumpkin carving and the decorating for fall. I love to decorate for fall. And the cool thing about that is then it leads right into holiday season. So it's like, it's fall, yay, I love fall. It's finally cool enough to wear your cute boots and your sweaters and all that. And then it's holiday. And who doesn't love like the Christmas season, like Thanksgiving, Christmas, and all the family eating, and we love to get together and eat all the bad stuff that we can't eat the rest of the year and that we pay for in January, let's be honest. But I love this part of the year because it's so happy. Come January, it's like it's a long bit before it's happy again. It's cold and there's a lot of fun holidays. And so I love fall. Fall is my favorite. I love to binge watch old movies. I'm a big old movie person, especially Doris Day, Cary Grant, Rock Hudson. Love those movies. I own most of them, but I love discovering ones I maybe didn't know. And so I like to watch those. Thankfully, my husband also likes those. So it would be hard if we didn't like to do that because I'll watch some shoot 'em up movies with him too. I just like, I love movies. I can't watch it I have to watch it as a writer now, though, which bugs him because I'm always thinking what I'm always appreciating what the writer did there. But that's just comes with, I think that's one of the things that comes with the craft if you're a writer. And then Jeff and I love to fish. We love to go bass fishing, especially. We bought a boat for our 25th wedding anniversary. That's what we had saved up for, and we've had it for 5 years. We just celebrated our 30th anniversary. So we've enjoyed this boat. We have such a good time with it. We travel all over, and many of my writers' conferences where I teach, if it's near Michigan, like I'm teaching it too in Michigan because I'm like, it's near the Great Lakes, it's great fishing. We'll go together, pull the boat. It's just a really fun life. We both have our own businesses, so we can pretty much pull out when we need to and go, different places to fish. But we do practice catch and release because then we can catch them again. And I don't know, I'm not much of I wouldn't ever want to, I couldn't do the whole skin them and like, no, I'm never going to clean the fish and cook them. That isn't who I am. So, but we do love to fish. That's a great time away from everything. We're on a boat. Usually you don't have any cell phone reception. So we're both not busy with work because we're very busy people with our work. And I love to go fish with my husband. I get to have them all to myself and we really have a good time. And then probably my third thing is I have 5 grandkids now. I have a brand new one just born September 25th. And so spending time with my grandkids is like my favorite thing in the world. We just have the best time. And we watch kids movies and we play dress up. And I mean, it's just so much fun. I always had heard from people that grandparenting is way more fun than parenting. And I just thought that can't be possible because I love my daughter so much. We had such a good time, but they were right. This rocks. This is way better. So if you're having a hard time parenting, just trust me. It's worth it. Just hang on. It will be worth it. All this drama and stuff, it's worth it one day. Grandparenting is the best. Oh my. I mean, chocolate, is that a food? Is that a food? Chocolate's my favorite. That's the thing that gets me in trouble the most calorie wise. I don't think I've ever met a piece of chocolate that I didn't love. So yeah, chocolate for sure. And all things. A day without chocolate would just not be a very fun day. I'm a big reader. I love to read. I think if you don't enjoy reading, you probably shouldn't be writing. I don't always read the things that I write. I do read some fiction, even though I don't really write fiction for adults. I do read. I love to read Eva Marie Everson's books. I have a friend I met at a writers' conference named Jim Magruder who has let me read some of his new book coming out, and I'm completely obsessed with this story. So I love to read some fiction. I appreciate it because I don't write it. And then of course you have to study your craft. So I'm always checking out stacks and stacks of picture books. I want to keep up with what's the new trends and things. So that's part of my job as a researcher for writing for kids. So I read lots of children's books, both picture book and board books, and some middle grade as well. But of all the genres that I probably read the most of is nonfiction. And I'm guessing that's because that's what I was trained in, as a journalist. I just love to read nonfiction. I love biographies, love memoirs. I love that kind of stuff. I love encouraging books, like self-help kind of things. I have one I've been reading. Oh, it's so good. It's a devotional, so I guess that counts, but it is so good. It's just about choosing joy in the mundane, like in everyday stuff. I love that kind of stuff. So I always have several books started. I don't know if that's weird, but I usually have like one fiction going. I'm always reading several children's books every day. And then I usually have at least one or two nonfiction ones going because I need them for different times. I need one for encouragement, like to spiritually feed myself. I need one just because I'm interested. Like I think I've read every book about Doris Day at this point that's been out. She passed away a couple of years ago. And I think there's been a new one coming out. I haven't seen it, but I think I've read every single book about her just because I liked her so much. And I just wanted to know more about her. So I love to read. I'll pretty much read anything. I just love to read. Yeah. Every writer wants people to walk away encouraged and joyful. I think from Dachshund to the Snow, there's two things that would be my goal for my readers as I was writing it. I would like children who maybe feel less than or feel overlooked, or maybe they're last one picked when they're choosing teams at recess because they're small or because of a disability or because of whatever they feel makes them less than. Every child struggles with that. Even if you don't know it, they struggle. I would like them to leave feeling like Crosby, that they can do big things, even though they're a small child. even though they're young, that they can do good things. And then secondly, I just think it's just a great feel-good story that it gives you somebody to cheer for. We like to cheer for the underdog, don't we? And literally the underdog is a dog in this book, Crosby. And so the fact that he ends up saving Christmas and winning, and fulfilling his dreams, I think that I'm hoping that sparks something within a child who reads it and those reading it to them, that, though we encounter struggles in life and everything doesn't just lay out perfectly for us, every day isn't butterflies and sunshine and bluebirds on my shoulder kind of thing, that it's worth the struggle because there's a payoff at the end. And it's not always what we think it's going to be. I didn't want Crosby to win the Olympics. I didn't want him to get in and win the gold medal. That wouldn't have been as much of a story. The fact that it didn't work out, he didn't get in the Olympics, he didn't get to go in, but he still got a gold medal for something else that maybe was more important. That's the lesson, that sometimes our plans and our dreams we have are what we think they're supposed to be, but then God has a different, even better plan. And we have to be okay with that. And so just always be hopeful. That's a lot to hope that kids get, but I hope that it's woven into the story enough that they're going to walk away going, I really like this book, and maybe not even know why, but that it'll be one they'll want to read again and again. If your book doesn't have rereadability, then you didn't do your job. And I think Crosby's book, I think this has it, but you guys let me know. I'm really excited about this book. I've got two of them, but this is my favorite because it's black, and black's my favorite color to wear because it's slimming. But yeah, so Dachshund Fizz Snow. You can get this on Amazon, of course. In-Game Press, Victoria has her own website, ingamepress.com, I believe it is. Of course, christianbook.com. These are all online places. It's also in bookstores. There's not as many bookstores around, I know, since the pandemic hit. Some of them still aren't open, but it will be available wherever books are sold. They can order it. It's also on like Walmart, I believe, and Target at this point. You can go online and look for it. It's pretty much everywhere. Because it's the first selling season for this holiday book, sometimes it takes like more than one season to get into the Cracker Barrels and the Buc-ee's and some of those. So we're hopeful for that will happen for next year. But since this is the first selling season and it came out a little bit later because Victoria just started the company in January and we already have a book out, that's a miracle of God. So I'm so excited about it. I don't know that you can get it in the Cracker Barrels or anything yet, but stay tuned for next year. But for this season, online is probably your best bet. A good problem to have, it sold out on its release day. All the pre-sales, everything completely sold out on the day it released, October 12th. I mean, that's never happened to me before, so that was pretty exciting. But they are back in. I know that the shipment is on its way to Amazon. So if it says it's out of stock right now, stay tuned, because like in the next couple of days, it should be there. And just keep buying. I think this is a great book to gift to somebody. And so those are the places you can get it. And of course, it'll be available on my website too, but it'll probably take you to all those other places we talked about. You can connect with me on all social media. I am IN Writer Girl. That stands for Indiana. IN Writer Girl, like on Pinterest and Instagram and Twitter and TikTok and all the places you can find me there, and YouTube. Also on Facebook, it's Michelle Medlock Adams. That's my author name. Medlock is my maiden name, but that's my author name because there were lots of Michelle Adamses that had books out. So that's my name. You can find me on Facebook and connect with me there. Also, I teach for Serious Writer Academy. So if you go to seriouswriter.com, there'll be a thing for Academy. You can click on my name. I teach a lot of writing classes that are recorded on there. Then I speak all over. Not only do I speak at schools and talk to kids about writing and about being an author, I teach at writers' conferences. So, you might, if you're a writer, you can catch me at a writers' conference. My schedule is always on my website, which my website is michellemedlockadams.com. So you can go there. And then also, I speak a lot of women's conferences and churches, doing like inspirational talks. So again, you can find me on Christian Women Speakers. Actually, I think it's just womenspeakers.com. That's Marty Swedberg runs that, and you can search by region. So a lot of people find me there, or you can just reach out to me through my website, and we can talk about me coming to your church to speak. So you almost can't not find me. I'm all over, and sometimes too much probably, but that's how you can reach out. And I usually live online. I'm checking email all the time. So if you reach out to me through my website, I promise you I'll get to you if I get an email. I'm so excited this year for the holidays because last year was kind of a wash, right? Like you couldn't really get together with family. We had a crazy, so many people had COVID in our family, and even lost a family member. So it was a terrible season for us last year. So we get like a redo this year. And it's my year to have the grandkids at my house. Yay. So, because we just share now. I just share. It's really hard to share. But I get the other families, the in-laws get them for Thanksgiving. I get them for Christmas this year. So I'm so excited. So I have all 5 grandkids going to be at my house. And we just moved into this house. So this will be our first year to decorate our house that we bought a fixer-upper and fixed it up. It took us a full year. And so it'll be fun to decorate this new house. I know just where I'm putting our main Christmas tree, the perfect spot for it. And it's what I'm so excited. But yeah, we are gonna have the best time. And I'm gonna have a Dachshund tree this year. I've got like lots of cute things. I have Dachshund lights. They're like little lights you put on the tree that we use for a book signing. I'm gonna have a Dachshund theme. I'll put a picture of it on social media. You guys look for it. It's gonna be a great year. The whole family's coming. My sister and her children. We all get together on Christmas Eve and go to her house. We play games, watch White Christmas. We watch The Grinch. It's kind of tradition. We eat lots of fattening foods and then we spend Christmas morning at my house with my family. And we were intentional to make sure we had enough bedrooms for everybody. So, oh, I can't wait. I mean, I will probably be watching every Hallmark movie 7 or 8 times before then as I bake and all the stuff. I don't cook very well, but I'm a really great baker. Anything sweet, I'm pretty good at. Can't wait to do all that this year. I feel like we should have double the joy this year because last year was so awful. So yeah, Merry Christmas to all of you guys. It's going to be a good year.